is John Colo at DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. In this episode we're going to discuss foam and juicing and how to minimize foam when you're juicing. I have many tips today to share with you guys. I want to thank a customer actually that's recently have had some issues with foaming in the Green Star Pro juicer that she bought from Discount Juicers. So I'll be actually juicing her exact recipe at the end of this video and share with you guys my tips on how to reduce the foam. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that, we saw all the different major styles of juicers at Discount Juicers, including vacuum blenders that can also juice. And here's the truth of the matter is every different juicer has its own set of pros and cons, right? I love the Green Star because it really does a best job as a slow juicer out there for grinding to a smaller particle size and extracting more phytonutrients and minerals from the produce. Some of this I've seen by data and testing, and some of this is just my own observation from using this machine against other slow juicers out there, such as single auger machines, right? But at the same time, this machine will create a little bit more foam than other machines. So you gotta know what you want. What's the most important thing? If you hate foam for some reason, then I can tell you get a vacuum blender that literally will make the least amount of foam because you're doing it under vacuum so that the foam cannot be created. And even and over and above the foam is basically air that's being added to the juice that you physically see. Please be aware there's also air being added to the juice that is dissolved in the juice that you don't see, and the vacuum blender basically makes the least amount of dissolved air in the juice during the juicing process from my testing. You guys are not going to get this information anywhere else because nobody, on YouTube anyways, juices as much stuff or as much produce as I do. Guaranteed! This week I probably made 5 gallons of juice. So, in any case, here's the thing, right? Every juicer will produce more or less foam, and here's the ordering in order of most foam to least foam, okay? So, the juicer that will make the most foam and add the most air to your juice are high-speed juicers, such as the Breville style juicers. Just one down from that, depending on what you're juicing, see that's also very important, like the Twin Gear, is maybe right below that in making more foam, especially if you're juicing straight leaves, although if you're juicing straight carrots, the foam will be minimal. Going down from there, then I would say something like a vertical single auger juicer with a wiping blade, right? The wiping blade, as it's spinning around and during the crushing and juicing process, may add a little bit of air into the juice, and the wiping blade will cause some excess foam to occur. And then next, I would say the horizontal single auger causes the least amount of foam, and that's why I recommend that machine if you want to juice straight greens. It will still make some foam, but it's going to make a lot less foam than the other style juicers, when juicing straight leafy greens, for example. And then finally, I would say something like the pure juicer, probably make a little bit less foam because you're grinding it and then you're pressing in a bag, and there's actually very little foam created in a hydraulic, 2-stage hydraulic press. Those machines are like $2,300. And then for the least amount of foam, I would say use a vacuum blender. I'll put a link down below to the video I made, how to make a green juice in a vacuum blender if I remember. And that's going to make the least amount of foam and, more importantly, put the least amount of dissolved oxygen into the juice. And that's for the people that are off in space like me off to the next level, because I believe the oxygen in the juice is not a good thing in the long run. But there are no scientific studies that prove this at this point. But I have seen a difference in removing the oxygen from the juice during storage and how I could really get a lot longer storage and shelf life from my juices that I create. So that's the first tip, is select a juicer that will create the least amount of foam as possible from the list I just shared. That being said, there are other ways you can minimize foam, so let's get right into it. Number one is change your technique when juicing, and that's what I'll be showing you guys in this episode. I'll be sharing with you guys my best technique to minimize the foam creation during the juicing process when juicing this recipe right over here that is basically 6 dinosaur kale leaves from my garden, 6 celery stalks, 6 carrots, 6 Brussels sprouts, 1 apple, and 1 lemon, and a piece of ginger. So in general, here's the reason why foam occurs in twin gears or either other auger style juicers, right? What happens on a twin gear juicer specifically is that there are 2 gears running together. Let's go ahead and pull this apart for you guys to show you guys. There are 2 gears inside the juicer that are running together. And as it's running together, it's literally sucking in the produce, but also can suck air as it's doing its grinding, right? When it's sucking the air in, then that air will end up in your juice, you know. If you have something like meaty, of course, you know, meaty, like a carrot has lots of meat on there, lots of fiber, it's nice and hard. These fibers fill all the spaces between the gears and the auger in there so that there'll be minimal foam created. But at the same time, you're juicing wheatgrass or juicing something like some dinosaur kale here, you know, this is a lot different kind of fiber. This will just go through the juicer, get squeezed out, and then there'll be a lot of air space in the gear to add extra oxygen to the juice and create the foam that you don't like. So that's why really paying attention, you know, to your number 1 recipe and number 2 how you juice the recipe. So for example, you know, the best idea in my opinion is if you're going to put a leaf in that's going to cause a lot of foaming, put something right after it that's going to diminish the foaming, such as a piece of apple or maybe some celery or a carrot that's going to fill in the spaces in the gear so that that will not foam. So I'd put a small piece of kale, followed by a piece of apple, followed by the celery, followed by a carrot, and then just keep repeating that until you're completely out. It'd probably be the worst thing to do is to juice all the carrots, all the celery, all the apple, all the Brussels sprouts, and then put all the kale in by itself last. That'll cause a lot of excess foam for you guys. All right, now I want to show you guys how to assemble this juicer. The first step is you take the 2 gears and you line up the dots in the gears. 1 dot should go between the 2 dots to make a triangle. I then just take the gears and just put it in there, and I kind of rotate this as they go in. Now, please be aware they won't go back flush. There'll be a little gap there. You can then take your feed chute housing, slide that back. You take your juicing screen, put that on. Take your outlet casing, put that on, then you go ahead and take these latches and clip it down. Another thing very important to minimize the foam, I always like to you know, use the outlet adjusting knob, which has a spring tensioner, so this will keep the pulp in the machine until it's wrung out and dry, and then and only then will it allow it to come out. This is something auger style juicers do not have. We're going to crank this up and crank it in all the way tight, right? And then we can go ahead and put the top on of the juicer, and we are all set to juice. So my next tip, aside from how to juice the recipe that you're making, is you can add ingredients to your recipe so that it can foam less. So for example, like if I wanted this recipe to foam less, I would always add more carrots. Adding more carrots when using a slow juicer, whether it's a twin gear or a single auger style machine, is a good thing to do because the carrots have a nice fiber consistency that will always help push through you know, the fibers of the softer things and fill up the spaces in between the gear or in between the auger and the juicing screen, and that's how air could get introduced as the machine is running. My next tip is to use vegetables that foam less than others. You know, while juicers will introduce some air into the juicing process, the problem is some of the phytonutrients in the fruits and vegetables can cause excess foaming. You know, these things are known as saponins. You know, if you buy soap nuts to do your washing in naturally, right? It's a soap. So the saponins cause the foaming that can occur. And, you know, some vegetables have a lot more saponins in there than others. Now, you know, people that are on a carnivorous diet say saponins are bad, they're anti-nutrients. But my opinion is that the saponins, there's research to show it may be effective against cancer and killing bad microbes and all these other things. So do your own research on that. But anyways, when you're juicing saponins, you know, and putting them through the juicer, it will cause more foam. So for example, spinach is known to cause have a lot more saponins than, say, kale, for example. You know, some vegetables will just foam a lot more than others. So for example, zucchini will foam a lot more than cucumbers. You know, I rarely juice zucchini. So if I am going to juice zucchini, actually I would do it in a vacuum blender like I have done in the past. And also zucchini, due to its texture, does not juice too well in a standard auger style slow juicer. Now my final tip for reducing the foaming when you're juicing is very important. It's to use the freshest produce possible. I mean, I literally picked this kale right out of my garden. I just went to the store to buy these Brussels sprouts right from the store, as well as the celery, right? It's super important to have the freshest ingredients. The freshest ingredients have more water content, right? And that will help the machine to foam less and cause less issues during the juicing process. If you have old greens that are wilted or celery that's really getting old, not super watery, then it's likely that it's going to foam more and give you problems. So now what I want to show you guys, actually we're going to go ahead and juice this recipe, and then at the end, after juicing, I'm going to show you guys 2 ways to reduce the foam that you've created in the juice, okay? So first we're going to go ahead and show you guys my technique for juicing in the Green Star Pro, this recipe to minimize the foam. So mainly what I like to do is I like to have all the ingredients out, and we're going to rotate through the ingredients. So I'll go ahead and put these out, and then I'll explain what ingredients I'll be juicing at what time. So as you guys can see, we got all the ingredients, and look at these kale leaves. They are huge. So like, I do not recommend putting one whole kale leaf in. That's just too much material. That's going to cause too much foaming. So what I would do is I would break these up into thirds, right? Very important. Break it up into thirds so that, you know, you don't have long leaves going in, right? Next thing I want to do is we're going to go ahead and cut the apple up into pieces so that we can put little bits of apple in after we put the kale to, once again, minimize the foaming. Right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and maybe cut the lemon up, because I like to distribute the lemon evenly and not just the whole lemon at once. We'll maybe cut it into fourths. And some of these Brussels sprouts, will they fit in? They'll fit in fine, so I'm probably just going to maybe put them in whole because I'm lazy. Alright, so the strategy is we're going to go ahead and put 1 leaf of kale in, then immediately after that follow with some apple, follow with maybe a Brussels sprout, and then celery, and then a carrot or pieces of carrot. And I might be breaking up this celery in half, and same thing, I might only be juicing half a carrot at once to go along with half of a piece of kale. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn this machine on. And once again, we got the kale going in, but then right after the kale, we're going to have the apple right ready to go in right on top of that. And then we're going to go ahead and put the celery right in on top of that. Then we're going to go ahead and put the carrot right in on top of that. And we're going to go ahead and use the pusher. I like to use the wooden pusher on the machine. Then we're going to go ahead and put in the Brussels sprout right after that. And then we could go ahead and let that get in there. Wow, Brussels sprouts are kind of hard to push in. You might want to pre-cut them. We're going to go ahead and put the kale in, but then before we push the kale in, we're going to go ahead and get a piece of apple to push in right behind it. Then we want to make sure we immediately put in that piece of celery. We want to minimize the amount of, lag time between on some of the ingredients, And then we can go ahead and put in a carrot. I probably should have put the Brussels sprout in before the carrot. Then we're going to go ahead and put in a Brussels sprout. Alright, so once again, we're just going to go ahead and repeat that process of the different foods, and we're going to speed this video up to save you guys some time. We're going to come back when I'm done to show you guys what I've created. So I'm almost done juicing. I don't think I'll be able to juice the last few items because I think I might be overflowing my catch cup. Maybe we'll try one more piece of celery and see what happens. We got a couple extra carrots that we were not able to juice since it would not fit. And you guys can see we've created a lot of juice. And there is a head of foam on the top. Now, is this a bad thing? I would say, this is a normal amount of foam that will be created during juicing. Every juicer to some extent will produce foam, a little bit or more. I'm not going to say foam is necessarily a bad thing. It is what it is. But if you don't like the foam, there are ways to minimize this. So what we can do is, the first easy way is to just take an easy sieve, right? You're going to pour the juice through a sieve. You're just going to take out some of the fiber, as well as a lot of the foam will stay in the sieve. Another thing you can do is get a gravy separator. A gravy separator is known to pour off the bottom, not off the top. So when you pour out of a gravy separator, all the juice from the bottom pours out of the spout into your glass, and it'll leave the foam on the top if you do not want the foam. Another thing I forgot to mention is if you want to minimize foam when you're juicing like straight greens or even a recipe like this, you could take something like flax oil, or I have some olive oil here, and pour that before you start. That'll coat the gears with some oil. That may also help to minimize foam, I hear. Also maybe put a little bit in during the juicing process. I'm not a fan of eating extracted oils myself, but if you do eat oils, adding it to your juice could have additional benefits because it may increase the fat-soluble vitamin uptake in your digestive system. Another thing I heard is that if you, before you're juicing, if you just rinse everything under cold water and juice it a little bit wet, that may also help to minimize the foam that's being created. Alright, so let's see. I like to tip this machine up a little bit to see if we got any juice that's going to drip out, and tip it back. We're going to go ahead and pull this out, and we're going to go ahead and put that underneath. And we have a nice head of foam on there, as you guys can see. I mean, I would say this is completely normal with the Green Star Pro juicer. If this is too much foam for you, then I would say get a different juicer or use one of the techniques that I'm showing you guys right now to minimize your foam. I mean, we're pouring this out, and a lot of the foam is staying on the top probably till we get to the bare end of pouring it, so we don't even need a gravy separator necessarily. And as you can see, a lot of the foam was caught by the sieve there and not going into our juice until we tap this out a little bit. Now, if you just let this sit for a while and let it settle, the foam is basically juice that has some air in it, and the foam will basically go down over time and turn back into juice. So it's not going to like stay there forever. So you guys can see we could just not drink this if we wanted to. If we want to, like, not drink all the extra foam, but that's up to you guys. We're going to tap this down a little bit. But I've tapped it down so much that I've tapped the foam through the sieve. So that wasn't super effective, although I did take out some of the fiber that would have been in the juice, okay? So now here's the next method for removing the foam if you really want to remove the foam for whatever reason, but also de-aerate your juice. We're going to go ahead and pour it into a mason jar. And you got to use a tall mason jar, so I have a 64-ounce mason jar here. Then you're going to go ahead and get a vacuum fermentation lid. These are available on some large big box websites I won't mention the name of. And then you need a vacuum pump. I happen to have the Tri-Vest vacuum pump. This comes with the Dynapro vacuum blender that I use. And we're going to go ahead and put the pump on the lid. What's going to happen is it's going to start pumping the excess oxygen out of the juice. So I don't know if you look really carefully onto the bottom of the juice here, you might see some air bubbles literally coming out of the juice and then popping up on top. Also, you may see some of the air bubbles literally popping as this pump is working. This will help to reduce some of the foam. Sometimes when you put the pump on the juice, it actually causes it to foam more, and then as it settles and sits there a while, the foam will dissipate, and then you'll have less foam as you are storing your juice. I do this technique to store my juices every day, but it can also be used to reduce the foam to some extent as well. And this is probably the best way if you want to store your juices, to store them under vacuum. Yeah, you can see some of the bubbles are actually coming up here. So what I do is we're going to go ahead and shake this up a little bit. And now the cool thing is, watch this, when we take the vacuum off, you'll see this level go down. See, you saw the level go down, and now if you notice, there's like, to me there's like less air bubbles in there. They're a lot more fine, and this should be settling out, a lot quicker than previous. Alright, so now I want to try that juice for you and see how it tastes and pour it off. As you guys can see, if we pour off and leave some of the back and the stuff in the glass, there's basically virtually no bubbles in there. Yeah, we'll see how this tastes. I've never made this recipe before. Wow. Woo! That's a strong juice, man. I'll probably put too much lemon in there. Really, it has an over-dominant lemon flavor. It's a good juice, though. It's a solid vegetable juice. These days I tend to basically make either straight green juices where I would put like things like kale and celery and romaine, or I will make a root juice with like different kinds of roots like carrots and beets, ginger and turmeric and jicama. I usually don't like mix my greens with my roots too much. That's just my personal preference these days. I found I like it better if I make straight green or straight root juices, usually with also some purple cabbage, which is also a really healthy vegetable for you guys. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode, showing you guys actually how the Green Star Pro juices, how much foam it makes, and some of my techniques to minimize your foaming. You know, you'll never be able to get rid of all the foam. Every different juicer will make some level of foam. Once again, foam, in my opinion, is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just one of the aspects you must consider when buying a juicer, right? If you say, John, I want the juicer that makes the least foam, well, get one of the juicers that I recommended earlier in this episode that makes the least foam. I mean, if you told me, John, I want the juicer that juices grapes the best, or tell me the specific needs you have, I'm glad to tell you guys what juicer will meet your specific needs, right? Every juicer has its own list of pros and cons, and foam is one of them, how hard it is to clean, how much nutrients is extracted into your juice, if it's, you know, a lot or a little, or more, you know, polyphenols and phytochemicals are in there, or more minerals, or more enzymes. Based on this data that I've seen, the science, and also my personal opinions, because I do juice so much, I definitely know what what juicer will do what, more than anybody else in the world, in my opinion. So I'm glad to help you guys out, but you just need to let me know what you're looking for, and I'm glad to fit you with the right juicer that will meet your exact needs. Be sure to check my other videos. I have over 600 episodes on this YouTube channel dedicated to show you guys all the different juicers and comparing them and contrasting them, and show you guys the honest truth about juicers so that you guys can select the right juicer for you. Because I want you guys to become juicers for life. Juicing has been one of the major things I've done in my life to turn my health around, and I have thousands of customers that I've sold juicers to that have also turned their health around, lost weight, gotten healthy, you know, overcame their disease because of the power of fruits and vegetables and removing just some of the fiber. Once again, the juicing removes the insoluble fiber but keeps the soluble fiber in the juice. For example, in carrots there's like 50% soluble, 50% insoluble fiber, so you're still keeping about half the fiber when you're drinking a vegetable juice. And it's the soluble fiber that feeds your beneficial microbes in your gut. And so that's really cool. And I get into some of the science videos, so you guys appreciate my videos that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Please support me in my work by making your purchase at discountjuicers.com. I'll put a link down below to the Green Star Pro juicer that I've used in this episode. You know, it's one of my favorite juicers that'll extract a high yield and high nutrient quality. Although at the same time it does make some foam. And it's not my favorite juicer because it is probably one of the hardest juices to clean in my opinion. Although the manufacturer would tell you it's easy to clean. But I share with you guys my opinions that may differ from the manufacturer sometimes, and that's alright. So in any case, if you guys enjoyed this episode and want more videos where I get into some details like this, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to share this video with others that are concerned about the foam and the juicing, and so they can learn my tips on how to reduce the foam when juicing. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on my new and upcoming episodes that have coming out every 5 to 7 days. You don't know where I show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 600 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to comparing and contrasting all the different major appliances, including juicers and vacuum blenders, that will allow you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, the best foods on the planet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.